Hello, friends. Good day to you. I hope you are managing well, even in this COVID-19 situation we find ourselves in. We are all trying our best to do same. I just need to encourage you to pray hard, take all the precautionary measures, but also to study alongside because we will definitely get through this and studies will be back on track. Whilst you prepare yourself in your studies, I quickly put together this summary notes for most of you, I think. And I think it will be useful for those who might have forgotten what they've studied or need just a quick, brush up on those units studied already. Okay. It's in this regard that I have put this together for you. And I hope that you find them useful. As I always announce, kindly send all your queries to my email, nmilesbafojimfi, N for Nancy. So that's the email. If you go to the course site, you should see that. Also, I need to keep you reminded that this is the official course reader for the text. Okay, this is the course reader, the required test, critical thinking and practical reasoning with the UGRC 150 here. If you don't have it, quite unfortunate in these times, hopefully you can trace it some way, somehow. But those who have it, that's what we instructed you to do. This is what you will use throughout the course. So we want you to be very conscious of it so that our referencing will be with regard to this text, okay? So in order not to waste too much data, which is quite an important commodity in these times, but also to still make the points that we want to make. This is as light as possible. We're taking out all the illustrations that will make the slides heavy. And yet, I think the substantive issues have been highlighted. You have to study this alongside your text and the other references we have given you. Bring all your questions to the chat room. Go online, group 1 members. This is addressed specifically to you, even though it's useful to others. But for the sake of our continuous assessment and the kind of interactions we've had, these discussions put into notes are tailored to meet specific needs of group 1 members, now group 14. Okay, so put all your queries, if you have any, on chat room, and I'll do my best to respond to them as I do always. Okay, so in unit 1, what did we focus on? We looked at our thoughts captured in language. We said that as critical thinkers, we try to examine the way we are thinking. So it is our thoughts that are captured into language. So unit 1 looks at how we should interpret our thoughts. Sometimes when we speak, the aim of that speech is to declare, to give information, to propose, to state. So if I speak and the intention of the speaker is to give information, like she has COVID-19, she has been quarantined. These two expressions I just gave are all propositions or declaratives or statements, like we've already learned, because it aims at conveying information. And because that is the aim, the information could either be true or false. This is what the critical thinker or the logician will label as what? Having a truth value. Truth value means it has the ability to be either true or false. It doesn't mean it is true, neither does it mean it is false, but it just describes the nature of the statement or the expression given. That expression is stating, it is conveying information, it is declaring, it is proposing. Therefore, we call it a declarative. So any linguistic expression that conveys information we have learned is called a declarative. We could also have the second way of speaking or another way of capturing our thoughts. Sometimes when we speak, what is the intention? The intention is for the hearer to do. And that is what you see in the second point. When we speak and our aim is to require of the hearer, the audience, the person hearing you, to act, to do, then we say the speech I gave is an imperative. Imperatives could come in the form of commands, requests, directives, blah, blah, blah. What are they meant to do? For the hearer to perform an action. I need you to take note of that. Yet still, sometimes when we speak, the intention is not to give information, nor are we expecting the hearer to perform any action, but we are actually seeking for information. We want the hearer to give us information, not to do anything, but to give us information. For instance, if I say, "Where is your mother?" You do not need to go into the room and call your mother. I didn't ask you to call your mother for me. I said, "Where is your mother?" I'm asking you for information. So if you are reading my intentions right, you are supposed to give a response. My mother is in the room, or my mother has gone out, or my mother is checking on the baby. Then if I want you to call her, then I will say, "Call her for me." And so far we have looked at the first 3 ways of capturing our thoughts in language, intentions captured in language. We went further in our discussions to look at sentence fragments. If I say, "Give me rice and stew," you will know that I'm asking you to perform an action. So that is an imperative. If I said, "The rice and stew is really delicious," then you can tell that I want to give you information about how I see your rice and stew. So that is a declarative. Now, if I say, "Where is the rice and stew?" then you can read my intention as meaning looking for information about where you put the rice and stew, for example, or when the rice and stew is coming. So where is the rice and stew? You know that I'm asking for information. "Oh, in a moment, please." Or, "It is on the table, please." So I'm looking for information. But if I say rice and stew, then you are confused. It sounds as though it is giving you some kind of information, but it's incomplete. You don't know what to do with rice and stew. Am I asking you to give me rice and stew? Am I complaining about the rice and stew? Or blah, blah, blah. So that's such an expression which doesn't have a complete thought. It is incomplete, so you're unable to tell whether it is declaring or inquiring or requiring the hearer to do. Such statements pointed to on your screen is what we call sentence fragments in critical thinking. Okay. And then the final one would normally be an expression that captures the speaker's feeling. We call it emotive expression. When I say, "Ah, what a virus," I haven't asked you a question. I am not giving information. I am not asking you to do anything. But it is also complete. It's not incomplete. How do you label that? It is an expression of my feelings, how I feel. Okay. So what a virus. Ooh, what a day. I hate this. So such expressions that capture the emotions of the speaker or expressing the feelings. Take note of the feelings, not viewpoints, but the feelings of the speaker is what has been labeled by critical thinkers, according to your text, as what? As emotive expression. So with that, the first part of Unit 5 has been well summarized. You need to engage the text and our previous discussions to refresh your memories on what we did there. But this is basically the pointers that should be useful in your revision towards your quizzes and your IA or what have you. Okay, even in the COVID-19 scenario. Now, a little bit of an addition. The second part of Unit 1 looks at types of declaratives. So we know that declaratives convey information, and that means declaratives can be either true or false. So we say they have a truth value. We have also learned that declaratives are statements, and statements can also be called assertions. They are also propositions. So we need you to take note of these various labels given to the same type of expression. Which one is that? That type of thought captured in language whose intention is to convey information. That's what we call declaratives. And there are 3 types of such declaratives, like we learned already. The factual declaratives, if you like, or factual statement. The other one is called value judgment. We discussed that also. And then we looked at the third type called definition. Now, because these are summaries, I just need to give you some pointers to help you remember what we discussed earlier, or what you have studied also in your text, and we have engaged in the chat room. Okay, what are factual statements? Remember, all the three highlighted types are declaratives, so they can all be either true or false. Definitions, value judgments, and factual statements can all be either true or false. So there is no contention about their being declaratives. But how then do you distinguish a factual statement from a value judgment and from a definition? Well, I need to make a statement here that even as we try to do some kind of distinction, we still want students to note that some factual statements may also be value judgments. And sometimes you could have a factual that is actually defining, or a definition that is actually stating a fact. So what? So that is why we are critical thinkers. We learn the main categorizations, but we are not oblivious of the fact that there could be overlaps. So we know there are two extremes of male and female, but we can't always be sure what clearly distinguishes one from the other. For example, would you talk about a womb being the definitive feature of a woman? What if a woman doesn't have a womb? Is she any less a woman? And so on and so forth. Would you think of a long hair as that which describes a woman or distinguishes a woman from a man? That won't help in our times now. Okay, so think of factual statements, value judgments, and definitions in this light, that we may try to do some kind of distinction between and amongst the three of them, but there still can be overlaps. And it is our duty as critical thinkers to raise the eyebrow or to point up where there seems to be an overlap. That is what our job is. We are helping ourselves polish up day in, day out. So what then is the approximated definition, if you like, of a factual statement? We refer to a statement as being factual if what? If it gives an objective description of what is out there through sense observation. I try to capture as many pointers as I can to help clarify what statement or what declarative will define as what a factual. Look at the keywords there. It describes what is there. How does it do the description objectively? What is the means, or what means is adopted? Observation. So if we understand these three, it will give us a fair idea of what we would call a factual statement and how we would want to distinguish that from a value judgment. And this is crucial to our further discussions ahead, because if we know what is factual and what is a value-oriented statement, then we are able to even tell the type of disagreement two people may be having. Could it be a verbal or a substantive? We'll get to that in some few minutes. Is the argument a deductive one or an inductive one? We can tell if we look at what the basis of disagreement is. So factual value will lead us to even, essentially contestable terms or well-defined terms that have been studied earlier. I need you to take note that these are all foundational to the discussions ahead. Okay, so what? So we come back to what we mean by objective. If I speak and the focus is about the object, not the subject, then I'm likely making a factual statement. Okay, the statement is either true or false, but the truth or falsity does not depend on my point of view as the subject speaking. If it doesn't, then it means that the statement is a matter of fact. The fact could be true or false. However, it is still a matter of fact. So if I say Nana Addo is the current president of Ghana, we are in 2020 in COVID-19 month, if you like, of March. So if I made that statement, I may be an NDC member or an MPP member or a CPP or a Christian or a Muslim or from any culture. this statement, truth or falsity, would not depend on any of these subjective, if you like, viewpoints or perspectives. That Nana Addo is the current president of Ghana, current here, referring to the year 2020. So let's make it more specific. In the year 2020, the president of Ghana is Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, full stop. This is a statement of fact. It's a factual statement, meaning it could be factually true, it could be factually false. What do we mean when we say it is factually something? It means it doesn't depend on my viewpoint, my values, my cultural beliefs, what have you. It doesn't come in. Those factors don't come in. That's what we mean by it is a matter of fact. So if I had said John Dramani Mahama is the current president of Ghana in this year 2020, it would still remain a statement of fact, but this time it will be a factually false statement. So what makes it a factual statement is the fact that it is objective. It is not subjective. And because it is objective, it only shows a description. You are describing what is out there through observation. And observation here talks about our five senses. I either saw it, I read it, I heard it, I touched it, or I tasted it. That is what factual statements are. So when I speak, sometimes the aim is to describe what is there. The car knocked down the schoolboy, full stop. But then we go to the second type of declarative, which is what? Labeled as what? The value judgments. Now we say value judgments also inform, remember they are declaratives, all three of them. So value judgments also inform, but this information is subjectively prescribing what should be there. Please take note of the keywords. Subjective. It depends on the subject's viewpoint, cultural perspective, values. Okay, we didn't talk about feelings. Feelings will reduce the statement to an emotive expression. It won't even be a statement in the first place. That's the point. Okay, but we are talking about cultural differences, values, religious perspectives. These are not feelings. These are people's understanding and perspective about the statement. So it is a matter of truth. However, the truth is subjective. It depends on who is speaking or which culture. So we think of such truths as what? Prescriptive. Pre means before. Scribe, think of scribe as to write. So before you even write, you had your own view about the matter in question. If you compare that to the describing, that one depends on the object, like decoding the phone. So it is in the phone, not in you, the speaker. But for value judgment, prescription, prescribing, before you do the scribing, you have a position already. That's why we see should. So it informs by subjectively prescribing what should be. Should be means you are seeing something there, but you don't think what is there should be. Should. So should is what you think should be there. You see how you distinguish the two. That's why a statement like she is a beautiful lady could be considered a value judgment because of the value term beauty being used there. Beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, we say. Because the same sister that a brother is dying over, I always use that to make you laugh but still learn. You know, that same sister that the brother is dying over, I'm telling you, if you gave that same sister to another brother, that brother will not even want to look at her for a minute. That's fine, because beauty is not an objective matter. It is in the eyes of the one beholding. And so when I make statements like that bachelor has a good conscience, the introduction of good makes this statement a value judgment. It is a statement. That means it can be true or false, yes, but it is dependent. That is the truth or falsehood depends on the speaker, his values, circumstance. So it becomes a value judgment. Unlike a factual statement like that bachelor is sitting under the tree. It could be factually true, factually false, objectively. But value judgment, that bachelor has a good conscience, is either true or false, depending on the subject in question. Then comes to the third type of declarative called definition. And that one is relatively more simple, I think, because it is just the label we give to an expression, a declarative, which aims at what? Giving you meaning, giving the meaning of a word. It actually tells you how to use the word. So for example, if I say a bachelor is an unmarried adult male, I would be giving you an example of a declarative, which is what? Which is giving you meaning. Now, you will notice then that anytime we have a definition, there will be the word that is unknown, and then there would also be the parts of the definition giving meaning. We'll get to that in some few minutes, but let's finish with this. What should you take note of? Notice that sentences may have explicit or implicit meaning. And that sounds like two big words, but much ado about nothing. Not to bother your heads, people. Explicit, exposed, that's what it means. The visible part. Implicit, hidden. So you will see some other words that are being used to describe those two terms. Where I use explicitly, I want you to also take note. Your textbook tells you it could also mean overt, open, overt. Then implicit, you would see covert, covered, or hidden, sort of, okay? So sometimes when we speak, I need to make that point here before we advance. I've said it earlier, but there's need for emphasis that one expression could present itself as something. So when people speak, the expression may suggest something, but you have to be a critical thinker. You must read what the intention of the speaker is if you want to, act appropriately according to the speaker's intention. So what? So look at this example here in blue. Could you pass me the checkbook, please? If I said that and you were sitting next to me, could you pass me your pen, please? This expression will come with a question mark. So on the surface of it, if you looked at it explicitly, it suggests that this is a question, an interrogative. Remember our first slide, talking about the types of sentences that shape our thoughts. We mentioned interrogative. So this, because it comes with a question mark, you would think it's explicitly an interrogative. But think about it as a critical mind. Would I just go around asking people just to find out who could pass a checkbook or who could not pass? Not likely. So as a critical thinker, you would notice that it is actually an expression asking you to do, but it is only presented in a polite manner. So if I said, could you shut up, please? I want to hear the president's update on COVID-19. Could you shut up, please? I don't need you to say, yes, I could shut up. That is a nuisance. You didn't read my intention well. So in that instance, the implicit meaning is working. Now, someone may be asking, so madam, when you ask us this in an IA or in a quiz, which one should we choose? Look at what the question's demand is and answer. Did I ask you to indicate the explicit meaning of this expression? Then do so. Did I ask for implicit meaning? Then do so. Did I give you options to describe this given expression? Then check what the options are saying. For now, just know that this expression could be both interrogative and imperative. Good. Now we move on to the next very important topic, which captures a whole unit. One of the types of declaratives is definition. And the whole unit 2 is committed to clarifying or giving you some more content on how you should understand definitions. I think that it is important to take note that you see just definitions in the text, but it has implications. Everything we are learning as academics is meant to change situations out there when we come out as lawyers, as doctors, as lecturers, as whatever. So your ability to make meaning to people is crucial. You cannot teach level hundreds as if you were teaching graduate students. That means you haven't gone through your definitions very well. You cannot impart knowledge, or you cannot help a patient if you were a doctor the way you would engage with your colleague experts at the consulting room. No. So you don't want to tell the patient you are suffering from, you mention one big word, trypanosomatosis, something, big word. This is a doctor to a humble patient. You don't want to say that, which is also called common cough. If the sickness is common, then why would you tell the patient that, well, you have a situation that is a common cough, and it means that you have something that is accessible to the patient. Then when you meet your colleagues, you can speak all the big language. So apologies to my very, blessed doctors. You are really helpful to us now, but we want you to understand, as well as every other discipline, that it is not how much you are able to impress people that helps matters, but it's actually how you are able to make the content accessible to the group in question. So, Mr. Marketer, if you are supposed to market a product to a certain population, take note, this topic is for you. If a teacher wants to help the students understand what he or she is imparting, focus on the group in question. And so definitions cuts across. If the policymaker wants to make the people understand social distancing, for example, and therefore the need to remain locked down if you don't have anything to do outside there, it's a question of definitions. Is the thing meaningful to the focus group? So definitions are not just a matter of theory. You learn definition, do definition, say you are gone. No, but we want you to have that impact that the unit aims at achieving. So with that said, let's now do some of the theoreticals and then connect them to this background I'm giving you. What is the definition? This slide wants you to focus on the parts first. Take the parts. How should you label the parts of a definition? Anytime you have a definition, there is presumably an unknown word. Then the other words are helping you understand, make meaning. That's what understanding means. Helping you make meaning of the unknown word. So in our example on the screen, a bachelor is an unmarried adult male. The presupposition is that a bachelor is the unknown word. An unmarried adult male is helping you understand that. Now, what is the technical label for the unknown word? Definiendo. You see it on your screen. Then the other parts that help you to make meaning of the unknown word is called the definitions. So every definition has two parts, the definiendum and the definitions. Don't get stressed out at all. If you are anxious about these big words, check your surname. I always say that to students. In my group, I'm telling you, if you are not sure and you think these people are giving us big words, check your own surname, how long and big it is. We have managed with it, so you will do fine. No worries. The unknown part of a definition is labeled as the definiendum. Then the known parts are the definitions. Now, this part is crucial, so I sounded that for you. Every definition has two aspects, the connotation and what? The denotation. I'll take it again. Anytime you have a definition, the definition connotes something, and it's also what? Denotes something. So what do we mean by it connotes? Connotation just represents what it means, the description, the criteria, that's all. So for example, if I say a chair is any object we sit on, that's quite blunt, but let's use that. A chair is any object we sit on. I have just given you a connotation of the word chair, what it connotes, what it means, what it stands for, a criteria. Okay. Now, based on that connotation, you can call what you are sitting on right now a chair. That particular thing is a denotation of the connotation of the word chair that I've just given. The same with what I'm sitting on. It is a chair. It means that if you're able to sit on your table over there, by the connotation of the word chair I've just given, your table will become a chair. Which part of a chair? The denotation of the word chair. Okay. So if you define a word, you give its connotation. Now, based on that connotation you have given us, we are all able to identify the particular examples of things that the word connotes. So based on the connotation, you can identify what? The denotation, the particular examples are the denotation. I don't know if I need to make an extra example, but check. If I had said a chair is the head of an institution, like the EC chair, then you would see that the thing we sit on and the and the head of an institution are not the same. Both of them represent a meaning of the word or chair. Chair as what? That which we sit on. I said that is very crude, but let's use that for easy understanding. Okay. So a chair could represent that which we sit on, and the same way a chair could represent the head of an institution. I just gave you an example, like our EC chair. If I define chair as that which we sit on, I have given you one of its connotations. If I define chair as the head of an institution, I just gave you one of the connotations of the word chair. You would notice immediately that as soon as the connotation changes, the denotation would also change. You can't list, the EC chair, Madame, and others before her as examples of that which we sit on. No. So the connotation matters. The meaning you give to a word matters when you are identifying the particular things that the word refers to. Now, it is at this point that I can help you easily to identify the error critical thinkers detect, which they call what? Equivocation. So equivocation is not something to be proud of. Unless you are doing it in poetry or you are doing it in rap, like our revered rapists do. I don't want to mention any, but I have quite some fans amongst them. Okay. They are very creative. They play on the use of one word. How? By using the different meanings of that same word in the same context, but they don't tell you, they don't give you a signal. So it sounds good to your ears. However, you cannot try being equivocal at the law court or when you are presenting a policy statement, etc. Your audience will have issues with you. You will either confuse them or you will think you are taking them for granted, and that cannot go well for you. So let's understand equivocation. If you are using the different connotations, that just means the different meanings, okay, of one word in the same context without notice to the audience, we will accuse you of being equivocal. You use the same word, but how? You are using the different meanings of that same word in the same context. You are not signaling us. Then we will have an issue with you. We will accuse you of being equivocal. Some examples will help. Look at this fine example of an equivocation. The chair invited the chair to speak soon after the chair sat on the chair. Whoa, that's extremely equivocal. I read it again. The chair invited the chair to speak soon after the chair sat on the chair. Now, if you are reading this, you would see that about 3 different senses of the word chair, about 3 different connotations of the word chair are being used in this context without notice. So we say the person is being equivocal. I can help you with 1 or 2 of them. The chair invited the chair. Obviously, the chair, the wooden structure we sit on, didn't do the invitation of the wooden structure. So you can notice that this is the chair, the one who is steering the affairs of the meeting, like the chair of a wedding reception. That is not a chair of any institution, guys. It's not the head of any institution. It's just the one administering, the activities of the meeting. So this is a third connotation of the word chair, apart from the earlier two we have looked at. Now see, so the one administering the affairs of the meeting, the chair, invited the head, if you like, or the one that is supposed to administer that meeting, or vice versa. You could change positions for the two. Okay, so the EC chair, for example, invited the person that is steering the affairs of that afternoon's meeting to speak soon after the chair sat on the chair. So obviously the last chair there is the wooden structure, but the first three chairs keep oscillating between chair as the head of an institution and chair as someone who administers the affairs of the meeting. Then we see the third one, which is the furniture chair. This is very equivocal. As a critical mind, you can't allow that to pass. In this instance, it's just a chair. You don't know what else could be the issue of contention. So you need to know equivocation. And it happens mostly also in our law courts when we are equivocal on the notion of freedom, law, what have you. Read your textbook, there are fine examples there. The second one you see here, example is my colleague bachelors gave up their bachelors to fix bachelors. Now this is equivocation. My colleague bachelors, human being, men and unmarried, gave up their bachelor's degree to fix bachelor's button. You need to know what the person means, otherwise they play on you and get an advantage. That was equivocation. Now back to our unit 2, types of definitions. You would see then that there are different ways of giving meaning. That's what types of definitions was meant to do. Read the content in the text. These are just PowerPointers to lead you and guide you and help. Okay, so you see lexica, the keyword there is dictionary connected. It will have its challenges you'll find in the text. Okay, extensive definition is when you point to make meaning. So sometimes you don't need to talk plenty. COVID-19, we talk a lot, I think, all of us included. I think sometimes we should just give pictorial evidence to people to see what COVID-19 is. When they see it, they may understand it better. Okay, like teaching a young child what color blue is. I tell my students always, you can't be all, technical about it with your spectacles on and all that. And say, color blue is a color that, no, look at the audience. You need to be extensive about it. Yet we know the challenges of ostensive definitions. Ostensive definitions will have restrictions, will be limited. You won't help the child much, but it is good for that level. As he or she advances, she'll understand that color blue is not only his father's shirt's color, but there are other colors, other items out there that are equally color blue. So that is for ostensive definition. Then we have operational definition. Definitions that are given by giving the steps or instructions to follow to get there. You don't know what fufu is. Fufu is that food that we get when we buy cassava, plantain, peel it, blah, blah, blah. So you give the steps. We pound it, mold it to dumplings. That is what fufu is. Then stipulative definition. When we agree on the meaning of a word, it means it may not be the usual meaning associated with that word if we were to consult with the dictionary. But we agree, so we stipulate. It is by fiat. So we can agree between myself and say, maybe the class rep, the example I gave in class, we can agree that when I say, give me a cup of water, I mean, give me a bottle of Sobolo. So whilst lectures is going, I can ask for a glass of water. Or I could say, my friend, could you give me my water? Now, the meaning here for the class is water, but for the stipulative meaning between myself and the rep would be Sobolo. Sobolo is you should know Sobolo. If you don't know, well, this is a stipulative definition for myself and those who know. All right. So words like humcho, if you are a Commonwealth a vandal on UG campus, charge and stuff like that are all stipulative to an extent. Then we have theoretical definitions, theory-based. Look at the definition. It's mostly institutionalized. So look at water is H2O. That's what your textbook gives you. That is an example of a theoretical definition. You don't want to call your house help at home and say, yeah, can you give me H2O? Give me H2O. You are testing. You are telling the assistant, someone helping you at home with house chores, to bring you water. And you don't want to say water. You want to sound all chemistry. H2O, you will be testy. Your banku will burn to ashes. You need to say water. You could even point at it ostensibly to save your dying banku, sort of. Okay. Then comes the last type of definition, which is actually the real definition. So on your screen, you see that highlight that, the real definition. It means then that all the ones we have looked at so far are not real. They have problems with them. What would constitute a real definition? See the other names it has. I call them surnames and middle names. There's an ideal definition, eliminative definition, essential definition, all describing the type of definition that we will label as what? Real definition. How would you distinguish a real definition from the others so far? Real definitions, look at, in simple terms, is what? That definition, whose definiendum can replace the definiens in all contexts of use. Wherever you use it, it will mean that. You will see that a bachelor is an unmarried man cannot belong to this category, because it isn't everywhere that you use the word a bachelor that it will mean an unmarried man. Okay, so a bachelor is an unmarried adult male. Maybe a lexical definition, but definitely not a real one. So which types of definitions would we call real definitions? We find them mostly in mathematics, logic, some aspects of physics. Why? Because these are deductive studies. Their terms are closed. The words they use there are closed concepts. I'm taking you there in some few minutes. You can't have your own meaning of plus or your own meaning of minus. The discipline won't permit that. If the argument is deductive, you cannot say as for you think it's inductive. If it is a modus ponens, it is a modus ponens. Okay, so they are actually closed concepts and yet, unfortunately, empty of content. Okay, you understand that in unit 6 and 7. So deductive studies like mathematics, logic, what have you, use concepts that doesn't allow or that do not allow for different connotation. They define their terms and they want us all to stick to that if we want to do math. So whether I'm in Ghana or Zaire, 2 plus 3 equals 5. That is what it means, is the meaning, their meaning defined. Have you thought about what democracy means for people? What is family? Can we think of terms like democracy, fidelity, justice in the same terms? That is the subject matter of the next slide, which summarizes open textured or well-defined terms. This is a build-up from what has just been discussed on real definitions. Okay, so you will see that there are certain terms or words which the very discipline they belong to does not clearly define what they mean. You can always contest, you can always argue out the meanings that have been proposed in that very discipline. For example, family. What defines family? Essentially, essence means it couldn't have been otherwise. That which makes family family. Someone may think that their friends are more of a family to them than even the so-called blood relations. Others think of the church as a family, okay? Some think of their pets as families, so the pets will eat better than even the help, and so on and so forth. Now, the issue is who is defining the essence of these words? Even the discipline like sociology or psychology or political science doesn't help us with a clearly defined meaning that cannot be contested. All the meanings we have, justice, democracy, fidelity, are contestable. You can contest the meanings given to such terms, even in their very discipline. That's why we describe such terms as what? Open textured terms or open class concepts. These terms are terms whose essence can be contested. But when we come to The real definitions, they are described as what? Well-defined concepts. What is that? It just means such terms make completely clear what the objects or properties or individuals are, which we are defining. And I mentioned earlier, these occur in maths and logic and some aspects of physics. So a definition like an even number is any number that divides two equally without a remainder. Is a mathematical definition. And that definition is presumed to be what? Well-defined. Wherever you see even number, you would have to define it as a number that divides two equally without a remainder. You cannot give it your own definition if you are doing mathematics. That's the point. You may give it your own meaning outside of math, that's fine. But in mathematics, you cannot say that for you, even number means something, or 2 plus 3 has become 10. You get wrong. If it is in the market, in mathematics there, you cannot buy 2 salmons for 1 cedi and then some wheelie for 3 cedis. And then when the woman is waiting for her 4 cedis, you tell her, as for you, 1 plus 3 has become 2. You get slaps. That's the point, because the meaning of math is well defined. But as for fidelity, some may marry 4 according to their religious dictates, and it is not a sign of infidelity. But others will have a problem if they married even 1.5, where one is legal and the other is a side chick. There will be a problem with fidelity because what they mean by fidelity differ, and both posture or both positions defend their notion of fidelity to the extreme. If that is clear, then we have made some good progress. Take a minute to rest, and then I'll show you some problems with definitions. Anytime you define, critical thinkers anticipate some challenges that could be associated with your definitions, and we label them as broad, narrow, secular, or vague. So far in my discussion, we have already identified some definitions that are broad, some too that are narrow. When we try to help our little boy with the color blue, we notice that will have a challenge. It will be narrow. If you point to the book and you tell the boy, you don't know blue, this is blue. That's good. You have helped the child to know blue, but this is a restricted definition of blue. If you're not careful, that boy may never think of any other thing as blue than this book. So it is narrow. Even though useful, it has a challenge, and we identify that as narrow. What does it mean to have a definition that is narrow? It simply means the definitions. Now I can use the terms. If you're not sure, revert to the earlier slides, and then it will be settled. Definitions is the part that gives meaning to your definition or to your unknown word, okay? So when you have a definition that excludes, it doesn't cover all things that are correctly captured in the definiendum, then we say, now your definition is narrow. If I say philosophy is the study of the works of Plato, that is a narrow definition. Indeed, philosophy covers more than just the study of Plato's works. So if I define philosophy as the study of the works of Plato, as good as that definition may be, it has a challenge, it has a flaw, which is what? It is too narrow. So it has restricted the reference or the extension of that word. That's narrow. The opposite would then be broad, where you include denotations that do not rightly belong there. Okay. When you include denotation that do not rightly belong there, your textbook gives you several examples. I really do not think we should spend too much time on this. But think of defining a man as a human. What is man? Man is a human being. If we were to take this as a definition, we have a challenge. I'm telling you, if you don't know man, look at human being. Whoa. You see Sister Adjoa coming, you see there comes man, because Sister Adjoa is a human being. But we don't think Sister Adjoa belongs to the set of man. So that is the challenge with definitions that include denotations that shouldn't belong there. Now, when is a definition secular? We said when you are only repeating the definiendum in the definiens, I don't understand a word, help me out. Then you use the very word to explain itself. We have a challenge. We call it being secular or begging the question. You don't have an answer for the question, so you beg the question. Okay. It is also called a tautology. We'll meet that in Unit 10. Tautology. What do you like to say? Tautology. It simply means you are not giving meaning to the unknown word. You are only repeating the very thing we don't know. So if I say to be famous, or as may say he's famous because he's well known, that is an argument I'm trying to give there. Okay, and that argument is only secular. Being famous is just another way of being well known. But for our purposes under definition, if I say morality is leading a moral life, this is supposedly a definition, but it is so flawed. When I say being moral is leading a moral life, I didn't help you. I just repeated the definiendum in the definitions. Your textbook gives you some very fine examples. I need you to look at it. This is Unit 2. I think this is about the third section or so, discussing the challenges or problems with definitions. The last problem, sickness, okay, of definitions is the one that has been labeled as vague. So definitions can be vague. When do we say it is vague? When it doesn't clearly specify, okay, what the reference is. It is indeterminate what it is referring to. Then we say that definition is vague. Normally, when you use language or you define figuratively, then we think you are being vague. Like the statement, religion is the opium of the masses. This is an example referred to in your text. This is symbolic language. It is not even clear. So you can't tell whether the definiendum covers it, the definitions or what, it is not clear. Then we say that is vague. If you got that, then I think we are good to go. Now, to another important theme, and that takes us to Unit 3. I have already said, and I want to reiterate, that this is a summary of the units that we've done so far as you prepare for your quizzes and your assignments and forum discussions. So these quick, summary notes cover units 1 to 5. And we know already that unit 4 is not captured. We are not doing unit 4. Unit 4 is just a pointer to the various units. So it's actually units 1, 2, 3, and 5 that you should prepare for your first quiz and your preparations, okay? Then for unit 6 onwards, we got a video already. You already have the videos. Those who couldn't download those ones, we are working on compressing them and uploading on the Sakai for you, giving you links so that it will be accessible in different ways. So this is just to help you for the units 1 to 5. And therefore, they are not a replacement for the content of the text. Please take note. You have to study the text, study the slides, add this summary kind of, slides to whatever you know already, and then bring your questions. And then you will be well prepared and settled to respond to the questions. Unit 3 then, types of discourse. The earlier discussions looked at types of statements or types of expressions, one expression sitting at one place like that. But for this topic or unit 3, you're looking at a collection of them. So passages, if you like. In your textbook, your required text, not any other text you are reading, because I think the feedback when I examined your third assignment showed that some of you may be reading some other content other than this. It is not a problem to read around, but the focus of your questions is always channeled through the text. So if you read your required text for the mainstream, then you can fill in with the other content, okay? And so for the types of discourse in your text, you have narration, instruction, polemic, and then argument. Now, narration or a narrative is straightforward, telling the story, so to speak. So when you report how something happened, you are not arguing. You are only giving us the sequence of events in the order in which they occurred. That is a narrative. You are just telling us a story of how it happened, okay? But then you could also have a passage which is not narrating, it is actually instructing. This one tells you how to do it. So if you are given an instruction on how to access the free food that is being distributed by the women's gender ministry, for example, you are showing how to, you are giving an instruction. You can say, to get to that place, take left, turn right, go to the Independence Square, and da. This passage is not a narration. You're not narrating how something happened, but you are rather telling us how to get it done, how to get there. That includes a prescription to get someone well. Okay, so that's also a type of discourse identified by your text or in your text. The third one is a polemic. Think of a polemic like a form of emotive expression, but this time in a collection, in a passage form, collection, not just one, but a collection of them. So it communicates usually strong feeling or persuasively vents an opinion. Okay, then the last one, which is a matter of interest for critical minds like you and I, is what? Arguments. Argument. So an argument is a type of discourse. What distinguishes an argument from the others? Well, whereas the others are telling stories or reporting how something happened or show you how to do something or expressing just a strong opinion, an argument, that's something else. An argument is a passage, a discourse, which gives you reasons why you should accept a certain claim being made in that statement or in that passage. So there is an attempt to give you reasons why you should accept or reject a claim being made. That is what we call an argument. Anytime you have an argument, there will always be what? A single conclusion. I need you to take note of that. A single conclusion that is presented what? As a logical consequence of reasons. The technical word for reasons is what? Premises or evidence. Okay, so I have premises or evidence or reasons on the basis of which I'm drawing a certain conclusion. Words like hence, therefore, thus, your textbook gives you several, okay? These words are indicative of a conclusion. They are signs, signal that there's probably a conclusion here. And then others like since, if, anytime, whenever, given that, are signals that what you have a premise. We didn't say that anytime you see so, it means there is a conclusion there. In fact, there might not even be an argument after all. How would you know the difference? Is the passage narrating or it is arguing? Second part of Unit 3, quickly, distinguishes verbal disputes from substantive disagreement. And this is a build-up from value judgment and factual statements and definitions I mentioned earlier. So when two people seem to disagree because they are using the same words and inconsistently, then we say that they are not actually disagreeing. It's just a dispute about language and its use, okay? I'm saying one thing and you are saying that same thing, but in a different way. We shouldn't disagree. I say, hey, Koko. You say, no, Echulu. Koko, Echulu, red. Koko, Echulu, red. Those who speak some Panti or Ga will notice that we are not disagreeing. It's just different ways of saying the same thing. We don't have to fight. So look at the example here. She is a nurse, says Kofi. Then Kojo comes in and says, no, she's not a nurse. So you're expecting him to give a different view. Then he says, she is a health worker. That is not a disagreement. That is a verbal dispute. It's a language issue. Someone just has to tell the two of them that you don't have to kill yourselves over this. A nurse is actually a health worker. So you guys are not disagreeing. Just let's agree on this. So for a verbal dispute, you can resolve the supposed dispute by stipulating meanings. Stipulate means agreeing on terms. It can be resolved. That's a verbal dispute, okay? The second type of dispute, which is actually a disagreement, and look at the name, is substantive disagreement. The disagreement is about substance. There's flesh to it. It's not empty. Like the first one, which is just a matter of the language. If you clarify the language, there wouldn't really be a substantive disagreement. For substantive disagreement, the disagreement borders on values. I mean, If I belong to a certain religious sect, I will not take blood transfusion, no matter what. I could die. I mean, if I'm an avowed member of that sect or religious group, I will not take it. And for good reasons, according to my beliefs. Okay? This is someone who needs it, is dying of, well, no. So these are values. Someone's value is not the same as another person's value. I'm not talking about feelings. Feelings may be empty, may just be at the spur of the moment. It might disappear. I'm talking about values, what runs people's life, what people consider to be right and wrong, sometimes culturally, sometimes religiously. Okay. So when people's disagreement border on different values, you cannot rubbish them. Look at one Bible, Holy Bible at that, different versions, churches, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Sabbath, red dresses, white dresses, and they are all looking at one scripture. Don't teach if you're a woman at the church, don't sit together if you are this. Now we can go to the other religions and so on and so forth. So my point is, you cannot take these for granted. When people's disagreement border on values, someone may not write an exam on a certain day of the week because of the values they hold on to. And therefore, if a disagreement is about values, cultural, political values, some are social democrats, some are, property owning democracy. If the values do not overlap, we have a challenge. We may never be able to resolve the supposed disagreement. Therefore, it is about substance. That's why we say substantive disagreement. Let's look at an example. She is a nurse. This is Kofi speaking. She is a nurse because she has a certificate from the training school. You see, so this is Kofi's way of defining being a nurse. Kofi thinks what makes someone a nurse is the person who has a certificate for that. Then Kojo says, no, she's not really a nurse because she does not care for her patient. This is not a matter of fact. No evidence you will produce will reduce this, will resolve this easy. Evidence, which evidence? Are you going to show pictures of the certificate or what? The disagreement is about what one thinks should constitute being a nurse, what one thinks should, take note, should, values. I think she really is not a nurse because she does not care for her patient. You can bring all the certificates in the world, says Kojo. It is not enough to convince Kojo. And so that means the disagreement is about what should constitute being a nurse and not just what is. It is now a value issue. Go to your text, please, respectfully, and look at about 10 or so examples there. Very useful. You never know. Unit 3, rounding down now. We are coming to the end of our discussion. Diagnosing ambiguity and vagueness. So we saw equivocation earlier. When do we say a statement is ambiguous? That's also another technical term, but very simple. When a statement is made, but that statement can have two different meanings, and the intended meaning is not clear from the statement, then we say it is ambiguous. We criticize such a statement as being ambiguous. You see, you make one statement, but that one statement can mean two different things. And it is not clear from your statement which of those meanings apply there. That is when we say it is ambiguous, not just the fact that the statement can mean one or two things. That one is not a problem because several of our expressions can have more than one meaning. One word can have several meanings. But when you speak in a way that one statement spoken can have more than one meaning, and yet the way you spoke doesn't allow us to clearly determine which of those meanings apply, then we say you are being ambiguous. So look at one example. Your text tells you that it's normally as a result of syntax, an error in how you placed your phrases or clauses. That's what syntax means. So look at the one here. Disappearing into a hole, I saw a mouse. Are you saying that while you, the human being, was running to hide inside a hole, then you saw a mouse? Or you want to say that you saw a mouse who was disappearing into a hole? Okay? Look at the second one. Free turkey. Are you saying there is free turkey here? Turkey as in the grilled turkey. people should come and pick in this COVID-19 times that people are being philanthropical, and rightly so. If I saw free turkey hanging in front of you, are you saying there's free turkey there for me to come for? Or you are saying we should free the nation turkey? Or we are saying the nation turkey is free? Or blah, blah, blah. So this one statement, free turkey, has several connotations. And yet, how it has been spoken will not permit us to know which of the meanings apply. So we say it is ambiguous. Okay. There is an example in your text also quite interesting. I think you should take note of it. I have always wanted to apply to enter into the medical school, and now I finally have. I have always wanted to apply to enter into the medical school, and now I finally have. This is ambiguous. And now I finally have done what? What? Have I finally applied, or have I finally entered? You cannot leave the statement as that. I have always wanted to apply to enter into the medical school, and now I finally have. A critical mind should quickly ask, please, may I know what you finally have done? Because you can't go home celebrating that, oh, we have a doctor in the making now. It might just turn out that the person has just finally been able to gather some money to buy the application form, which is not the same as entering the university. That's ambiguity. Okay, the text gives you more again. Then the final one there was vague. And I mentioned vagueness when I was explaining the challenges that we could have with definition. So being vague means you are indeterminate. You don't clearly specify what the reference is. So we can't even tell whether you are being ambiguous or not, because the expression itself is not clear. An example of vagueness was there. Maybe we should go back one slide to look at that. Being vague. An example is this: every graduate who cannot find a job is not looking hard enough. Any graduate who cannot find a job is not looking hard enough. Brothers and sisters in the Lord, what does it mean to look hard enough? Should we go stand by the, newspaper stand and look hard? How? What does that mean? It's vague, it's indeterminate. Now there's a caveat here quickly, then we can start ending. Some expressions such as metaphors and proverbs. Metaphor, look at the name metaphor. Those who speak a kind of something. Metaphor. She is a pig. When I say she is a pig, I'm a patient, or I'm the husband of a patient speaking about my wife to my doctor. You shouldn't say, oh, how can you say that about your wife? Don't say that. No. Listen to me, but I'm speaking figuratively, metaphorically, idiomatically, proverbially. Okay. So when you hear she is a pig, don't think that I'm saying she has 4 legs, but immediately look at what I may be symbolizing. But maybe because there are people, the younger ones or what have you, I'm speaking in a vague manner. So vagueness could be intentionally and purposefully done so that the statement will have an open-ended interpretation. Okay. So when language is intentionally used that way, your text tells you to be cautious not to literally interpret metaphorical and proverbial language. They are not meant to be interpreted literally. She's an angel. My class rep is a flower. It doesn't mean she's something hanging on a tree they go and pluck. No. Maybe she's delicate. Maybe she can easily, break down, what have you. So you need to open it out. So the Lord is my shepherd. Doesn't mean we are sheep, literally, but it's symbolic. And therefore, you shouldn't do a direct interpretation of that. Okay. In the example with the pig, we could be saying that the woman is putting on fast, becoming fat, if you like, or she might be eating a lot now. We thought that she won't eat for us. Come and see, doc. My wife is a pig now. Maybe it's actually a celebration of a certain issue we had with loss of appetite, okay? Or she's snoring bad. So you want to be careful not to do a literal interpretation, go saying, your wife went to tell your doctor that you are a pig. He doesn't respect you at all. You shouldn't have done that. Find out what is being said. And so one expression could be reprimanding, at the same time advising, at the same time judging, depending on how it is used. If it is used in an open-ended way, then it means that same expression is serving different purposes. One fine African example in the text says, the hen also knows when the sun rises, but it is the cock that crows. The hen also knows when the sun rises, but it is the cock that does the kukuruku. Now, if this is said by the Bushampini, in a gathering where a husband and a wife have issues and the people are trying to settle, he could be reprimanding the woman that you may be right, but you should be careful how you keep sounding and shouting at home. Could be a reprimand. At the same time, it could be an advice to the man. Look, the woman may be the one, the breadwinner of the house, but you have to stand up and hold up the home. You are the man. Crow. At the same time, he may be advising the people, the audience, who are witnessing the settlement, that you cannot go. So you see, one expression, the one that we are speaking, the hen also knows when the sun rises, but it is the cock that crows. It could be a way of consoling the sister, telling her that, don't worry, don't say anything about it. Just keep bearing it for the sake of the children. Whatever you do, what you can do, he will change. Because even the hen knows when the sun rises. It is the cock that crows. So when you have a proverb or a proverbial language, you cannot do a literal translation of it. That's the point. It is open-ended. Now we can finish up in some few minutes on Unit 5. Why not Unit 4? Because it is not coming. The content there is not for examination. It is for help, to help you navigate your way through the courses and how they are labeled, some humanities, social studies, or social science, and so on. Okay, so we focus on Unit 5. Then you will also notice that 2 sections in Unit 5 are already covered. The one on facts and values, already covered in Unit 1, factual statement, value judgment. And then the one on explicit and implicit meanings, also sorted out when we looked at the ways of interpreting our intentions. So then what is left substantively in Unit 5? You should be able to get yourself acquainted further in what normative versus empirical laws are. Laws are generalizations, okay? But then some of the generalizations are just a description of what is there. Back to factual statements, if you remember. So we call them also factual generalizations. If you are just describing what observation has showed us, that anytime we throw a ball up, it comes down, or when a woman gets pregnant, she likely delivers in 9 months, and stuff like that, then you are just expressing an empirical generalization, an observation-based law, a regularity that we detected through constant seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling, okay? Now, such laws may change. And it is not surprising at all that a woman could get pregnant and in 7 months, the baby thinks that place is too hot. She wants to come out, okay? You will not tell that baby, stay there. You are not coming out. You are breaking the law of biology. No way. You are going to allow the child to come out, breaking that empirical law of, delivery, okay? Now, it means then that such a law can fail. Empirical laws are subject to failure. This failure here meaning that it may not turn out to follow the regularities of the past. So yesterday may not necessarily be like tomorrow when we are dealing with an empirical law. That's why the meteorologists can tell you, I've studied all the humidity and what have you. If I look at the waves of whatever coming from the northern side, northeastern winds and blah, 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 tomorrow it will rain cats and dogs. And then you are happy. You won't go for lectures. There's no IE because it is going to rain. But the findings were based on observation. But then it may turn out, through no fault of the meteorologist, that the next day it actually shines. The sun shines like the ozone layer is broken. Now, why is that possible? Because we were dealing with a law that is based on what has been observed. So what did the people say when you did your research? The people say, oh, we think we are for so and so and not for so and so. We'll vote for so and so, we'll not vote for so and so. And lo and behold, the opposite could turn up. Why? Because the political scientist is dealing with the empirical observation base. So yes, we'll work with our findings, but if we are dealing with empirical generalizations, then we should anticipate possibilities of failure. Why? Because empirical laws should be seen as what? Predictions. They are what? Predictions. Empirical laws are predictions. And just like saying that Barca will win the match against Real Madrid, for example, you say it at your own risk because it could fail, but mostly it passes. You say Barca. That's just for the fun of it. Okay. Now, how about the other type of laws? Normative laws. Normative laws. There are other generalizations that are not dependent on observation. They are actually our laws that we make. So our here refers to what? Man-made laws or prescriptions that are not based on observation. Okay. So logic, or your textbook tells you logical laws, mathematical laws, statutory laws, civil laws. These are all supposedly, even divine laws are supposedly discoveries made by man, and therefore they are normative. It doesn't allow for exceptions. They are not predictions. They are actually what we want to see. So 2 plus 3, we say we prescribe as what? Equal to 5. It's not the same as anytime you throw a ball up, it will come down. Those are empirical laws. Now, if you get the two extremes, you will see that the empirical laws seem to be factual, whilst normative laws seem to be definitions and values mixed together. I need you to now do a further reading of your units, and let's see what you come up with. All my channels are open. When I say that, I mean my emails, my WhatsApp, available to my students only. Please keep it discreet. Like I have some kids, there are quite a number already, but I'm open to responding to all your queries that are within my purview. If it's beyond me, then I'm likely going to extend it to the authorities that be. But as I bring this discussion to a close, I would need to tell all of us to be as calm as we can about this COVID-19 thing. We should avoid all the stress. Don't feel unnecessarily anxious about anything. There isn't anything to be anxious about. You just need to seek clarification. And I think we'll make it. Read announcements on Sakai regularly. Go onto your site and read the announcement for yourself, especially for UGRC 150, because we have several groups and your instructors are managing the course continuous assessment. So I may announce a quiz for group 1, and it doesn't or wouldn't necessarily apply to group 3 or group 7 or what have you. So what you shouldn't do is to be relying on posts that someone saw somewhere and posted on your WhatsApp. I wish you well. I'm praying for you. I wish that we are able to get through this together, safe and strong. Take care. All the best.